isn't really that stretchy. All right. Now we're going to turn this into a slab. These are slab sticks. You need them. They are not optional. I don't yell, you need slab sticks for fun. All right. They act like train tracks, and they're going to prevent our slab from getting any thinner than this. All right. So they make this much easier. So I'm going to lay them on both sides, and your rolling pin is going to roll on these literally like train tracks. Okay. So I'm going to start. Buddy, do you remember what the saying is? What do I do? Roll, roll, flip, right? So you're going to roll from the middle out, away from you, and the middle back towards you, and then you flip. It seems like that would be painfully slow. But if you roll a bunch of times like this, what ends up happening is the clay just gets stuck in the texture of the mat, and you're only moving the top part of the clay. So you're going to end up being frustrated because then it's sticking to your rolling pin, and then I'm going to see you start to get like frustrated, and that's when I zoom in and go, did you flip the clay? So I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to turn it the opposite direction. So now I'm going long ways, and I'm going to roll this way because I would like this slab to be roll away from myself, roll back towards myself. I would like for this slab to be more square or at least rectangular versus very, very long and skinny. If I flipped and rolled this way over and over and over again, flipping in the same direction, I would just get a big, long strip. Which sometimes you might actually want that, but not all the time, okay? And there will get a point where your slab is too wide for your rolling pin and your slab sticks. Do not panic. You can just ride on one temporarily. The train would still not be completely off the tracks. It'd be getting a little scary at that point, but we'd be okay. All right, and then I'm going to flip it again. When I'm flipping it, I'm also working kind of slowly. If you kind of rip it off the mat, you'll just rip a big hunk of the slab off. And then you'll need to start over. All right, getting close here. So you're going to be able to tell that you're done when the slab stops expanding. Rolling out from the center. If you see, I think you can see it on there. This is a bubble. It's an air bubble in the slab. I'm just going to stop, poke it, push the air out of it, and then keep moving. You don't want to leave the air bubbles because they act as like little caves for moisture to hide in. And we know by now that moisture is not our friend when it comes to firing things. All right, so I'm going to do one last pass here. I lied. I'm going to do a second pass because I can see that the clay is like wrinkling here still, so I know it's still too thick. Very carefully lift it up. The thinner it gets, obviously, the more gentle you should be, and the slower you should work. Okay. So now, this would be finished. You can feel a difference with my rolling pins riding on my slab sticks. You can hear it when they're touching, okay? You're not finished until that happens. If you try to roll without slab sticks and eyeball it, which is just not a thing we do here, there's a reason why we don't do that. It's really difficult to see by eyeballing it how thick something is. And then when I go to use it for my slab, I end up with this. No one wants an edge of a cup that looks like that. All right? It would be incredibly terrible to drink out of and not very functional, but it does not look nice. Our slabs, because we use slab sticks, I'm going to cut them. And I'm going to cut off these extra, like this is a cracked piece, so I'm going to get rid of this because I have no use for that, and I also don't want it to end up on my mug, so I'm going to cut this part off. But I can also look and see that my slab is exactly the same thickness as my slab stick all the way through. That's what I'm looking for. All right, all my extra pieces I put onto a pile, the pieces that I cut off, as those get rolled into more slabs. Like I will be collecting them and rolling them for virtual people and letting them sit. All right, so there we go. Now, get my slab sticks out of the way. The surface of the clay, you can kind of see, it's a little hard in the webcam, but see how it has some little imperfections. It's got cracks because of that clay being really soft. It sticks to the texture of the mat. So we want to do the next step, which is called screeing, which is just a really fun name. Which is all we're going to do is smooth down the surface of the clay. I'll lose my credit card again. Okay, hang on. All right, I'll grab another one. So we remember from a long time ago, the clay is little like sheets of clay with little balls of water in between. All right. Well, right now, all of those little plates of clay are all going like wild. And so what we want to do is take the credit card, and you're not going to hold it straight up and down. You're going to lay it down like this and press lightly and drag it along the surface. And what that does is lay all of those little platelets down in the same direction. And so what you can see is you get a shine on the clay, like that, that you didn't have before. And that's how we know that we've screed correctly, because we're laying all of those particles, those platelets down. So I'm going to go back this way. The other thing it does is it makes it really noticeable if you have an air bubble. They'll kind of stick up. So I just go back and pop them, press the air out. And then scree over the top of them again. And that'll deflate them. The other question I get all the time is, how much clay do I need? Well, it depends on what your tracer looks like, how big of a slab you need. So a lot of this we're going to cut off and recycle. So you guys, these tracers will be floating around in here when you're rolling these out. But these match what you traced the other day in class, so these match your sketches. So we're going to end up cutting your sketches out and using them as well. But you need enough slab for this, enough slab for a circle for the bottom of your mug, which I did not cut a tracer for because we use your mug itself. And then you're going to need a little rectangle, long skinny rectangle of clay for your handle. Okay, or if you want to do a sculptural handle, that's also highly encouraged as well. You would just use your extra soft clay for that. All right, so that's plenty of slab for me. All right, so I've screed it. Now I need to get it off this mat and get it into my box without messing it up. You don't just peel it off the mat, because when you do that, it's going to thin sections of the clay out, and you're going to get fingerprints everywhere. So we can actually do this without touching the clay at all. So I've got my clay on my mat. Single sheet of newspaper from the bottom drawer of the filing cabinet. Going to smooth that onto the surface of the clay, very gently, not to make any marks, okay? And then I'm going to slide my mat off the table onto my hand, or onto my forearm, I should say. Then I'm going to put my other forearm on top so I have a sandwich and flip it over. Because I stuck the newspaper down to the slab, it actually makes it hold its shape a lot better, and it's not just going to flop when you flip it over. That's why I do that. And then I'm going to peel this mat off at a pretty sharp angle, so the slab doesn't even lift up. Okay? Put this off to the side. And now I can scree or smooth the back of my slab. The other thing about screeing that we like is that the underglaze which we're going to paint onto our surface in order to be able to sgraffito, is going to go on so much nicer on this nice smooth surface, and you'll get an even nicer finish. What we don't want is for any of those little cracks to shine through. All right, so I screed both sides. I'll put my tools in my basket so I don't lose them. All right, and now I want to put this away because we're actually not going to cut our shape out right away. It would be way too floppy. It would it wouldn't hold its shape. It'd be a nightmare. So it's going to sit overnight. All right, so we'll take your bin, and you want to have everything out of your bin at this point, like non-negotiable. So if you have tools, they should all go in that bag, which, no kidding, you all have tools. They should all go in that bag that has your name on it, okay, so that we can keep it on top. And then everything else should be out on the inside. No sketch paper, no rando, anything. All right? And then you're going to lift. I have one in here from first period. I'm actually going to fold this down. You will only have one, so ignore this one. Okay? You can now take the ends of the newspaper and use this to transport your clay, so you don't have to touch it at all. Pinch the ends of the newspaper and lift it up gently and lay it straight down into the bottom of your bin, and then you can fold these little edges over. We use newspaper, so we don't have to touch the clay, but the better, more important use it has is it really slowly drinks up some of that moisture from the clay and makes it firmer. We want it to be slightly firmer so that we can build with it, but we certainly do not want it to be hard. If I left it out, who knows what it would turn into. The heat could kick on and it could be rock hard in an hour. Okay? If you keep your house at home very warm, it's going to dry out really quick. I have somebody in first period who they run humidifiers in the house, like, you know that thing you run when you're sick? And her clay is always like so soft. So it really does, it matters the environment in your house, and every single one of you now have a different environment, plus the classroom. Okay, so we're trying to combat all of that. So little bit of paper, that's that one sheet of paper, not a whole sports section. Okay, that will lead to trouble. It'll be way too dry. And then snap the lid all the way on. And now overnight that'll sit and firm up, okay? If we were to try and roll those before break, that paper would drink up all the water and they would be rock hard. All right, so that's why we're kind of holding on until after break.